Welcome to the Friendly Moms Club podcast with Jen and Karlee. We're the new mom friends you didn't know you needed.
We are creating a safe space to bring moms together, lighten the heaviness, and find joy in the everyday moments. Together, we will share our own experiences of being new moms while navigating the topics we wish more people talked about.
Join us every Monday to hear us skip the small talk and dive right into the uncomfortable. That was just struggle bus city.
Yeah,
to do the
honestly,
intro.
We
struggled.
just had like huge bowls of pasta, and I don't know if we're just in like pasta comas here because
I ate a lot. Jen brought over some nice vegan cauliflower Alfredo because her daughter Jordan doesn't eat dairy. So it was like vegetables and nutritional yeast, and then I doctored it up with some cheese and turned it into a baked pasta. But
it was freaking delicious.
I added peas and green beans.
So we did have some vegetables.
We did. We had some veggies and then some pasta, and then I layered on some cheese and baked it. And you know what? I think it had all the food groups.
Tons of vegetables.
It does.
Literally, it's just like pureed cauliflower with things in it. Like it's a ton of vegetables per serving.
It was delightful.
So it was super nutritious. Yes, we're good.
It was, and I'm here for it. But I ate too much, so I need to like lounge. But if you're if you're going to be listening to this, because we're no longer putting it on YouTube, just because we are now working mamas. By the time this comes out, I'll be back to work.
Yep.
We want to just kind of streamline a little bit.
Yeah.
So
focus what we're doing.
If you miss us on YouTube, then I don't know.
Let us know. We might do it back eventually. We'll see.
We're not against it. We are filming our video.
Yes.
For promo for all of our fans.
Our promotional material we make. Yes.
So if you don't follow us on Instagram, this is a good time because I would like to say we share some quality content. And if you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts, we'd love a review. And if you're listening to this on Spotify, give us a thumbs up or like. I don't think you can comment on that one.
I don't know.
Subscribe.
I don't know. Do something.
Please.
Today, a spicy topic.
It is going to be spicy. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about sex, baby.
If you're my family, I wouldn't continue listening. Like, if you're our family members, you might not want to listen to this one.
Mom, just exit out.
You don't even, think you can handle it. It's just going to be uncomfortable. So.
And, we all know we're not virgins here. We had babies come out of us.
Yeah.
But you don't need to know the intimate details. So
I think it's good. Bye.
Bye. Yeah. Bye. See you next week. But if you are a mom but not our mom, listen up.
Continue listening because it is important to what we are going to say.
It is important. Speaking of sex, intimacy is freaking hard. It is very hard to prioritize your relationship when it is not an actual urgent matter. Like you don't have to feed your relation. Well, you do have to feed your relationship, but not the same way you have to feed your child and feed yourself. So it is very easy to put it to the back burner, to say, oh, I'll work on this next week, or also just to hate your husband after having a kid and not want them to touch you. There's
not wanting to be touched is a real thing.
Real thing.
Like I only breastfed and tried for a little while, and I was like,
you're like, stop touching me.
Like I just.
Yeah, it's a lot.
And then baby sleeping on you, and I'm not a cuddler. So I'm not someone who likes physical touch all the time.
So then had to have a baby
sleeping on me all the time. I was like, holy shit, this is
your touch bucket is full.
This is a lot. So yeah, that to me was a big thing. But we're just going to be talking about intimacy and sex, and that there is a difference. You don't need to have sex to be intimate with your partner.
Exactly.
And that is something that's very important that we're going to get into a little bit. But we're going to talk about intimacy kind of at every stage. The trying to conceive, like the whole perinatal period. So trying to conceive, postpartum, we're now a year postpartum. So our experiences thus far is what we're going to get into.
I just typed out masturbation and
yes.
We'll get there. Jen's probably dying a little bit inside because we come from very different, not upbringings, but different, like Jen went to a Christian private school. I went to, just regular old suburb public school with the other whores. No kidding. I have to say the friskiest people I know went to Catholic school.
I know. It's so true.
Yes.
It is so true. It's almost because you have to bottle it up and no one can talk about it. So then when they finally can experience it, they're just like, holy crap, I've been missing out. And then they go crazy.
Exactly. Yeah. But we came up with being told different things about sex. I mean, I didn't grow up in a super sex positive family. Like we weren't talking about it and we weren't, sharing tips. None of that.
Yes.
But I didn't grow up in
thinking you were a terrible person, you were going to go to hell if you had sex?
Yes. Okay. But I do have friends who went through that, and it's been a really big struggle to enjoy intimacy and sex as an adult because they've always been told it's for procreation, sex is dirty,
Yes, you shouldn't enjoy
it's sinful. You shouldn't enjoy it.
Yeah.
Masturbation's a big no-no, so that's why it probably scared Jen a little bit that was number 1 on my list. No, we'll get there.
Yes.
Mom, if you're listening still, please just stop. Please, Mom, please.
Now is the time.
Now's
Turn
the
around.
time. Get
Turn
out
back.
of here.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's good. We want to help, like everything else, normalize this conversation. If you did grow up in a conservative family, like Karlee was just saying, you might think that this is, but you might think that this is like so taboo and it's not okay, but it's actually a huge part of your relationship and it does matter. And if you actually will talk about this with your partner, like it makes things a million times better. It makes sex a million times better if you actually have open communication about it. And if you, like, for the longest time, I wouldn't want to talk about it with anyone, not even, like, Nanad, while we were dating. Like, that's so messed up.
But it's not messed up because that's what culture teaches us.
I know, but
there's no shame in that. I agree, if you're actually having penetrative sex, any kind of sex with somebody, then you technically should be able to have these conversations, but we're not brought up that way.
Yes.
So it's messed up that we're not brought up that way, but not messed up you felt that way.
Yeah, okay. Well, yeah. But we know, like, lots of moms that we've had these conversations with, and so many people are like, thank goodness that we've talked about this.
Yeah.
Like, because everyone wants to talk about it because you experience things. Things may change. Things can feel different. You might want to add some things into your sex life that you've never used before, done before.
Some things,
right?
Yeah.
Like, there's just a lot of things that can change. And so we've had this conversation numerous times. We were at a restaurant at our friend's bachelorette party that we had. We were talking about sex and sex toys and lube. And then someone was like, oh, the waiter's going to hear. And I was like,
yeah,
we're having a normal conversation. We weren't having anything taboo. We were literally just talking about
like this
postpartum sex and how it can change and ways to help it. And like we were having a total healthy conversation that shouldn't have been taboo or wrong. Like nothing we were saying was wrong. And it was just like, it made me feel so good that we could talk about these things in our friend group because I don't think everyone does.
No, and we did give somebody a little idea and then they went and tried it with good feedback. So
so we are experts now.
We are. I think we actually, you were talking about how everything changes. So physically, if you are the birthing person, so much changes. Regardless of how baby came out. There's some ways, like if you had forceps, it's going to damage and change your pelvic floor a lot more than if, say, you had a booked C-section, just the birthing part. But being pregnant in general changes your pelvic floor. It completely can, things happen.
Even if you didn't have a vaginal birth.
Even if you didn't. Even if you didn't give birth. But if you, however baby came out, just being pregnant, the essence of being pregnant puts pressure and stress on your pelvic floor, so it changes things regardless how baby came out. But I think in the future it would be great to have a pelvic floor therapist on, somebody we know
someone.
We're looking
if
at
you're listening,
to talk about the changes that happen and what's normal in air quotes or common and that would be
and what
good.
you can actually do, because as she's talked about this before, like so many people are ashamed and don't want to admit that like they need to go see a pelvic floor therapist. And it's super healthy to go. Even if you think your birth was fine and that things feel fine, it's really good to go get checked up after having a baby just to make sure your pelvic floor is functioning. There's nothing you can be done. There's a lot of exercises that can be done at home with them. They have like little tests that they can do, and it's actually really important.
And it's usually covered because they're if you go to a pelvic floor physiotherapist and you have coverage for physio, it's included. Although, just so you know, it is usually a pants off party. They do internal exams. They do
internal. It's not just they're looking around. They are feeling around.
You're having conversations with their hand inside of you.
Yeah.
I mean, they're very professional. Well, hopefully when you go do is professional. It's not weird, but just something to know before you go that it is but I guess you could do it without that if you didn't want to do that. But if you had a baby, then you don't care. So
yeah. I just want to touch on like a little bit of my experiences before we get into all of this stuff. Because it really helped, and it helps me to be able to have this conversation now because I basically have every vaginal thing you can have. Like I have a lot of diagnoses, and I don't know if I believe all of them or if it's just because it's all in one area, like your uterus, bladder, everything, your vagina, like it's all just so close together. Your pelvic floor muscles, it's all just there, and I have lots of problems, and so I've had to see a pelvic floor therapist like years ago now. And it was super uncomfortable for me. And I was just like, this is wrong. Like, it was such a mental block for me to go. But I knew I needed to do it. Like my pelvic floor, I have vaginismus, and it's like your pelvic floor doesn't function. It's like hard as a rock. And so there's different stages of how like spasmed it is. And I get like spasms. So I won't be able to sleep at night because it feels like I'm getting like spasms all in my vagina. It's super fun.
Doesn't sound nice.
But I had all of this and was going through all this when Annette and I started dating. So I could not talk about it.
Yeah.
Like, it forced us to have these conversations about my vagina and about what sex would be like and what it couldn't do. Like,
let me tell you about my vagina.
yeah, like, it forced us to have these open
good.
conversations, which I think served us a lot better in these journeys that we're going to start talking about.
Definitely.
But I get that it's hard. I'm here to recognize that it can be a really hard thing to talk about and to be comfortable talking about.
Mm-hmm.
But like we were joking about this before, like it like notches up your relationship a huge amount, like 100 times better if you have open communication about what you want, what you need, like what actually feels good.
Imagine
like,
if you went to a restaurant and you just said to the server, well, you didn't even say anything. They just brought you a meal. They don't know actually what you like. They don't know how long you want to wait. They don't know what flavors or colors or textures or consistencies you like. Like, that is what sex is like without communication.
That is, did you just make that up?
I did.
That was good.
You literally just show up to a restaurant and they give you whatever they want or they think you like, or, you know, they can make you wait an hour. They can make you wait 1 minute. Like, you never know.
This is actually such a good analogy, though. Okay.
It is, because how is your partner supposed to know what you like? Especially, we're going to go there. If you have been enhancing your pleasure, or not, I'm just gonna say if you've been faking anything, which is common.
I didn't know where you were going with that, so thank you for clarifying.
A lot of women feel shame that they can't orgasm during sex, so then they fake it. And if you happen to marry somebody that you have been faking it with, now they think that you love sex, and you know where I'm going with this. And you don't have to orgasm, that's fine, but if they think that you're always finishing, then how do they know?
And they think what they're doing is like 10 out of 10, right? Because they think it's working for you.
Exactly.
Well, now you're like set up for a lifetime of never orgasming.
So like what Jen said, that communication can really help. I want to also recognize that communication can be very hard if you're in a relationship for a long time and you've always been doing it one way.
Yes.
And then you go to change things up and they're like, whoa, but you've always liked this. And then you're like, well, no, I actually haven't.
Yes.
Yeah.
It can just be,
it's hard.
It can be uncomfortable and it's not easy.
Not easy.
We understand that what we're saying, it sounds so easy, like just talk about it, but it is very difficult. So, and I've been doing this for years. Like I was kind of forced into it because of medical stuff. So, but I'm grateful for it because I think it's helped serve us well now. But yeah, anyways, that was a whole big segue of all of that. But we did want to also say that things can change when having a baby, and it can change for the worse. Things can be more painful. Things might not be working the same.
Yeah,
like that's more like I think the more like common thing people talk about is how it got worse. But I also know some people, this one woman actually said that it was feng shuied. Like her vagina was feng shuied for the better. Like it felt so much better for her after having a baby. So it might change in a good way. It might change in a
which actually
not so good way. But like
was something that we're going to talk about it, right? That it got better for you?
But yes.
Not that it got better. It got...
No, my libido was... Yes, got it. Very different.
Okay, yeah.
Very different. I didn't feel like anything different functionally,
okay, so
I guess.
It felt the same, but you actually
It felt the same. I wouldn't say anything was feng shuied or not feng shuied.
Got it.
I was just like very... into sex
it.
after having a baby.
Which can also happen in pregnancy. Some people in the second trimester with all the hormones, they're like, get in here now. I'm going to do you.
That is not what I'm experiencing.
That is not what I experienced. I was like...
I didn't experience the first time, didn't experience it this time.
No, he would like look at me and I was like, don't even look at me. We lived in this house for maybe like months. And then one night I was like, we haven't christened it yet. And I was like, our old self would be so upset.
Yeah.
So then we did. And it was fine. But like I was pregnant. I was like, we can be intimate other ways, which we mentioned. You don't need penetration. You don't need sex for there to be intimacy. There's lots of ways. So
yeah. Let's get into some of the questions we have.
Yeah. So first, this is going to be our foreplay. I'm on a roll today. I'm killing it. Let's talk about ways, speaking of gentleness, ways that you can like foster intimacy that aren't just sex. This is our foreplay into the conversation. So for me, I know something that you do is like massages or rubbing backs. And that is something that Jeff and I really enjoy, especially giving each other massages, knowing that it's not going to lead to sex. Let's be real. Most of the time it does. But
But if you go into it thinking that, it's very different.
Yes, it's not enjoyable because you're
Yes.
like, you just want to get in my pants. But if you are just
Yes.
giving me a massage because you know I'm stressed, you know I'm not feeling well,
Yes.
it is different. And it's way more enjoyable when there's no expectation. And sometimes it doesn't. It literally is a massage and it's like, okay, good night, love you.
Yes.
Ciao, ciao.
Exactly.
That's a big one. Or
Yep.
even like holding hands in public. We didn't hold hands in public for so long after having a baby because we had a baby and we were holding the baby. And just even doing something like that or rubbing each other's feet or holding hands while sitting on the couch. That's
you forget
one.
about it, though.
Yeah.
You almost forget about those parts
Like
of your
cuddling.
relationship.
Those are so
Yeah.
nice.
I'm not a cuddler. Like I said, like I'm not a cuddler. I can't sleep while cuddling. And so for us, fostering that intimacy is just being actually physically close to one another. And I know that's something important to my husband. So I try to do that, even though I'm like, I cannot have sex in any near future. I still can actually
You can still
like
be intimate.
be intimate and be close to him and still be there with him without actually having to have sex. Like, but there is something about when it's expected that
Yeah.
it changes the whole dynamic.
Definitely.
So you do want to have those times where it's not expected. You're like, this is not happening. This is just
Yeah.
us wanting to be close together.
Definitely. And I found that once we started doing it without the expectation that something would happen and actually nothing happened, then it actually, like, it's not like, well, you said nothing's going to happen and then you tried.
Yes.
You know? Then
There's a huge psychological component to wanting to have sex and to having
Definitely.
good sex. And it's like we talked about this too after having a baby, or like you might have a lot of resentment with your husband or spouse partner. And so you might not want to have sex, not because your libido or because of any physical thing, because you are just mad at your husband,
you don't
your
like
partner,
them.
right? Like you just don't like them right now. You're upset that they can't breastfeed. You're touched out. And like, there's like,
You're annoyed they get to go to work.
Your brain and your mental ability to just like get into that zone is not happening. And so there's a whole, like, there's so many components. So you need to like mentally feel good and connected to your partner to be able to physically be connected and feel good with your
Definitely.
partner,
And
right? Like,
I think also for women, we need to have all of the checklists ticked off before we can even think about being intimate.
Yes.
So like I struggle to even like the thought of like sitting down to watch TV. I can't do that until like the dishes are done, Henry's lunch is packed. Like if there's any laundry, it's put away. Like the same way that like I struggle to start my day if the bed's not made. Like I'm a little bit anal, but that's just how I function best. So I can imagine for other people that if, dinner hasn't been cleaned up or the dishwasher hasn't been emptied, that's all you're thinking about. You're not thinking about
you can't get in the
having
zone.
yeah, you can't get in the zone.
So note to Jeff, if you
he
just do
knows.
everything, Carlee comes
He
home and the house is
knows.
clean, it's all organized, and he's just standing there, you were like, oh yeah,
Just
we're
with
getting it on.
a bow tie and
Yeah.
covering. Oh, that's good.
Yeah,
Give you a
so
visual.
your emotional needs need to be met as well.
Yeah,
And
100%.
So that can struggle postpartum
For
too.
sure. And a lot of partners don't realize what you need for your emotional needs to be met if you're not communicating them.
Yes.
So especially partners, like varying sex drives between partners can be
Yes.
like a very big argument or conflict in marriages. Like that's what people fight about. They fight about sex, they fight about money, they fight about, I don't know, that's it, sex and money. So if you have different sex drives, which you often will after having a baby, because most people, unless you're Jen, your sex drive tanks and you're like, get away from me. And a lot of times your partner, they didn't go through this big giant physical transformation. So they're like, hello, it's been 6 weeks. Like,
We
give
used
me
to do
something.
it several times a week, and now
Yeah.
we haven't done it in months.
So now, even if you already had a big discrepancy in your sex drives, it can be even bigger. And then you have way more emotional needs and you're way more fragile, and men are dense. They don't always know that. So like there's so many moving parts specifically with postpartum.
And we are going on such a tangent from what the question was, but before I forget about this, I want to talk about it, that we talk a lot about mental health and anxiety and depression and taking medication for that and how that's totally okay. And that, I mean, I was taking it before pregnancy, during pregnancy, after pregnancy. Like I've been taking it for years. Carlee's also been taking it, but a big side effect of taking an SSRI or something for anxiety and depression is a decreased libido. So you might feel so much better mentally and be functioning so much better, but it's very normal to have a really low libido because of that, or just not be able to orgasm. Like a lot of people just can't get to that point because of the medication, and it makes you feel messed up. Like it can really be tricky to deal with that when you're like, I want to have sex, but it's not working the way I want to, and you feel like something is wrong with you, and then you maybe don't want to take the medication, but it's helping you so much. And so that's like another layer on top of this, like,
that is true.
Right. And I think some people don't realize that. And so when they start taking it, they just don't realize that there's other factors at play.
And it actually affects you a lot. Like, it's like one of the reasons I feel like, I don't know the actual research, but I feel like, especially for men, it's one of the reasons that they either don't take them or go off of them.
It is. I don't know the research either, but I've read different articles about it.
Because
women,
it
is common.
If they don't feel like having sex or don't want to have sex, unfortunately, can still have sex because people with vaginas are just a hole. But men, they need to actually be primed. I shouldn't say men. People with penises. Actually, like, you can see when they want to have sex, and it's, if you're having penetrative sex, they can't fake that part because, so like, women, unfortunately, society makes us still have sex when we don't want to. Not society, but like the culture and dynamics of your relationship.
And this comes up when you were trying to conceive, because does a woman need to orgasm to have a baby?
No,
they don't. But does a man? Yes,
they do. We need those little swimmers.
And so that actually puts a lot of pressure on guys. Like, they're the ones that
That's
have to come
actually,
through, get it. That was good.
But we're on a roll.
So they actually need to come. So that's a lot of pressure on them. So if you're being like,
true.
this date, this time I'm ovulating, get it going, like, and you're staring at them like, come on,
and
like,
if you're not enjoying it and you're just like, okay, let's get this over with, like, how sexy is that?
Right? Like, it's just, I don't know. I found that I was so stressed out about getting pregnant and how it's not going to work. Like, we talked about how negative we were going into it, that it completely changed the ability to actually have sex and like enjoy it. Like, it was not an enjoyable experience, like, at all. So, and I know some people who freaking loved it, and they're like, oh yeah, it's just so much fun. Like, you just get to have unprotected sex all the time. How awesome is that? I'm like, how did you not freak out? How did you not, like, I was taking all these ovulation tests and peeing on everything, sticks, and trying to figure out, and some people test their, like, mucus, or just, their mucus levels, and like, they can figure out that way, and like, then you're timing it and like waiting for a husband to get home from work to pounce on him. And like, it's just not.
It's not sexy. It can be. And we've talked about it before, that the month we actually got pregnant was the month that we were like, okay, we're coming up on a year. Sex feels like a chore. It feels like a burden. Yeah. We're not actually enjoying this. We're not connecting. And like, we need to take the like science experiment aspect out of this and kind of become more spontaneous again. So we said, okay, we know in and around, like, when and around I ovulate, so let's just have sexy week. And then that's the week or the month, the time we got pregnant, which is annoying because it's true.
I know. But so many doctors say that too when you go to them saying like, oh, it's not happening. They're like, just have fun. Like, have a glass of wine. Feel good. Like, spend time with your spouse, like, just let it happen naturally, which is so much easier said than done.
If you listen to our IVF episode with Mel, you know that relaxing and having fun will not get you pregnant if there is some reason, but if one of the reasons you're not getting pregnant is because you're not, I don't know, like, not that if you enjoy it, you're more likely to get pregnant, but I don't know. Maybe you're doing it more. Maybe I don't know. Maybe it does.
Maybe there's science to it. I don't know.
Somebody, scientist, Emily Oster, please let us know.
Yeah. I actually found too in the trying to conceive journey, I was just so, I just didn't think it was going to happen. I was so negative that there was no interest in even having sex when I knew I was ovulating, because I just didn't think it would happen. Like, I was so negative about it. I'm like, there's no point because I'm just going to be upset when I don't get pregnant anyways. So I wouldn't even want to try anymore. Like, I was just so negative about it. So that also came up in our journey. And like, miraculously, we just did end up getting pregnant, which I was so, I don't even know how, because I was so negative about it. But
it was just little Jordan coming in to teach us a lovely lesson, teach you.
Yes.
Yeah. I found we just became so regimented with it. It was like, okay, this is when I'm going to be ovulating. Okay, these are the days I work night shift. So like, this day and this day, we're going to have sex. And like, like, we tried to make it fun, but like, it, for months at a time, it was not. It was like a burden, a chore. We were just like doing it, just like, it literally was like, okay, let's go have sex, coming back 10 minutes later, making dinner. Like, it was very blah most of the time until we had sexy week, and then it was fun.
Also, it can cause, so like, there's the physical, not being able to get pregnant, and like having issues like with intimacy with your spouse, but that can lead to bigger issues in your relationship. Like, it could lead to more fighting about other stuff just because you are on edge or emotional,
the petty
and
drama,
upset about stuff that you end up blowing up over like small little things. And it's not about those things, but now you're just,
it's not about the pasta,
right? Like, it's just, so it can lead to bigger problems in your relationship. And fertility issues, I think, can be very, very difficult. And if you listen to the IVF one for Mel, she said it brought actually her and her husband closer together. So that's great. Like for
Which
some
I don't
people,
think is the norm, though.
I don't think that's the norm either. I think that it actually can break a lot of couples apart. It can lead to greater problems than just not wanting to have sex with your partner.
It kind of brings up all of the other issues you already have. It like, what's it called when like something's going on and then all of the like when you push things down, repressed. All of the repressed issues and emotions come up. This podcast is literally just Jen and I working on our word recall. Yeah. And so much of it's like, what's that word? What's that word?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay, so Karlee already spilled the beans, but like immediately postpartum for me, I saw an increase in libido. Like I have no idea, but I really wanted to have sex. And that's I don't think common.
No.
I think it's more common for people to not want to have sex, not want to be touched. But for whatever reason,
you were like, I'm Randy.
Which like for years I have had all these health issues. So I was like, wow, is this what it feels like? This is freaking fantastic. And I just wanted to have all the sex. And then
your poor husband.
And then this is where we are. Yeah, poor husband. And then this is how this happened. So
yes, this as in her belly.
Yeah, as in my belly, as in being pregnant. 6 months postpartum. But yeah.
Just want to add that in real quick.
Yeah. So
actually, I think it was the lingerie, which we'll get to when we talk about spicing it up.
Yeah, well.
So you bought the lingerie.
I know, but I don't know timelines.
I remember. You bought the lingerie.
Oh, you're asking me to recall things.
I remember everything. Okay. I have this thing in my brain. You bought the lingerie and it worked.
Yeah.
And then I think it was the next week was when you had the whoopsies.
Interesting.
Good. Yeah. Oh, I remember everything.
Karlee remembers all. See, because we talk about these things in our friend group, though.
So the lingerie got things going, but I don't think it was the lingerie time. It wasn't lingerie time. Because we're just going to air this all on the internet. You put it on just to show him, and then you messaged later being like, it worked. And then that was like a midweek. And then it was a Friday night when because I remember Jeff was away at a bachelor party and you guys,
she knows
I remember everything.
Okay.
That's
funny.
My husband Jeff was away and her and Nad came over and she was like, yeah, pretty sure we made a baby yesterday or the night before. Like it was like that weekend.
Yeah.
And we had a good laugh about it. And then,
then we didn't laugh about it.
Yeah. And then we didn't laugh about it. Now I want to search this timeline,
okay,
but
well,
yeah, you keep talking. I'm going
I just want to make a clear point for lingerie. It's not something that you need to do for your spouse. Like, let's be very clear. Like, having a nice set of bra and panties that match, that are like lacy and you just are comfortable and it makes you feel good. So we're not saying that go out and buy lingerie to please your spouse. Like, that is not what we're trying to say here.
Them,
so
it's
let's
for
just,
you.
But when you feel good and sexy, it gets you more in the mood and it just helps.
The same way that, like, if you do things that make yourself feel good, you take your time to, if you like yoga, if you like working out, a nice hot shower.
I was thinking about foreplay. And yeah, sure.
Before the foreplay.
Do yoga and a hot shower.
Shave your legs. If you actually wash your hair. Like, if you do things that, like, when you're, like, in the throes of postpartum and you're covered in spit up and you stink like curry, like, you don't feel sexy.
You do not feel sexy at all.
You know, but, like, I found my biggest thing, not even for sex, just for me, my look good, feel good. If I shower, I don't wash my hair because that's stupid. But if I usually put on a little bit of makeup and like I don't feel like a greasy slime ball, life just is more enjoyable.
Yes.
And then in turn, I am much more inclined to get down and dirty. So do it for yourself.
Yeah, no. So I just wanted to make that clear because I think so many times social media portrays it to be like you need to buy lingerie for them. Whereas I think we need to focus more on making ourselves feel good. And, like, let's focus on us. And you're looking back. This is so weird.
It was May 3rd. That was the lingerie. Oh, and then the cold plunge. We'll talk about that, too. That was for me.
Oh, yeah. Let's talk about your down and dirty times.
May 3rd. And then let's go back. Let's journey back. I got to look at my calendar app here. That was, I think, a Wednesday. May 3rd.
Sorry to Ned. We're just going to literally talk about everything here.
And then it was Friday the 5th when our sweet little new angel, who's coming, was conceived. That lingerie. That's one expensive piece of lingerie. No, but I don't think you were wearing the lingerie that time that it happened. But
I have a terrible memory, so this is all new information to me.
This is something you don't know about me. I literally remember everything.
And that does too. I'm sure he would remember this too.
Because it was when I was away. Yeah, the cold plunge, what we were talking about was that I went and did a cold plunge with a friend. And then after we were joking, we're like, woo, that got us fired up so much that like it almost made me want to have sex. And then I went home that day and Jeff and I were just like having a nap. And then spoiler, it did actually make me feel like I want to have sex. So then I messaged them after and was like, so the cold plunge actually does work.
Yes, it actually
Yeah. But okay, before I was looking at my phone, you were saying something.
Well, I don't know now.
Oh my goodness. What did I do? You were talking about...
No, like lingerie.
Lingerie. Oh, yes, that is for yourself. It's for you.
Yes, I think that's just a big
We don't give a
difference
crap about your partner. They don't need help. I mean, maybe they do, and then you can do it for them. But, like, you can do other things
and
for them.
And I actually, like, just, why not tell you the full story of this? I actually bought the lingerie because I was going to do a boudoir photo shoot with someone who I really love on social media, and I'm going to tag her because she's so good at it. And she makes it look like it's just so classy and beautiful and, like, yeah, and so I have been looking and I had booked this before I was even pregnant. So then after I was like, I was kind of going through the like, do I still want to do it? And I was like, you know what? No, I'm going to embrace postpartum and like loving my body, that it gave me a child, like loving who I am now. And so it's like, I want to buy some new like lingerie pieces that I can do this in. And like, that's where I bought the lingerie for that. That's the full story. So that is why I had bought it. So it was.
I thought you were going to say, so that's why I'm pregnant.
Yeah. And then I never did the boudoir photo shoot because then I got pregnant and I was like, okay, that's not actually, like, I don't want boudoir photo shoots with the bump. That's just not what I was.
No, it's not what you're envisioning.
So,
but it'll be nice because it'll be a nice way to like bookend both your pregnancies.
Yeah.
And like a new journey of yourself. Like you're done that phase of your life and now this is me.
Yeah.
This is who I am.
I talked to the photographer, Stacy, and I just said, I'm like, I want to do this for me. Like, I want to celebrate my body after having a baby and take photos that make me feel good and beautiful and that I love myself and celebrate what my body has done.
Definitely.
Because I have so many, like, body image issues and stuff that I've had for years
and even,
years.
Like, physical, not issues, diagnoses or whatever.
Yeah,
like, physical.
It's like been a lot. Yeah. So I wanted to do it for all of these reasons for me. And then that led to the lingerie for me and this photo shoot. And then it led to another baby. So.
Yeah, but hey. It's working.
Yeah, I guess it's working.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So how about you immediately postpartum? How did you kind of react?
I wanted nothing to do with anyone in and around my nether regions. I remember when Shannon and I first went on, it was one of our first walks, and you were telling me about how, I think it came up, like whether or not we'd had sex yet. And I was like, oh no, I'm still postpartum virgin. And I think I was maybe like 7 weeks postpartum. So it was still like early on. Totally. And you guys were both talking about how you have and like sharing your different experiences of it. And I remember thinking like, I am not ready, but I didn't feel like pressured. I was like, I'm just not there. And when I am there, we'll give it a whirl. I actually at one point got really sad to Jeff. I was like, you haven't tried to have sex with me. Like, you don't love me. And he's like, I was trying not to put pressure on you. And I was like, hey, this going back to communication, like, he was trying to be respectful and not putting any pressure on me, where I was like angry and resentful, being like, hey, you know, I'm 8 weeks postpartum now. Like, hello, like at least like maybe not make a move, but like suggest it. So we both were coming from different viewpoints, and it was causing some, like, I actually was mad. Like, I was mad. I felt like unloved, and I was like, oh, just because you saw a baby come out of me.
I was gonna say, is it because of how I look after having a baby? Yes, like, there could be a lot of things going on.
So many things. He was trying to be respectful, and like that was his way of like being loving and like allowing me to have it on my own terms. But then I was mad because he wasn't like initiating, and I felt unlovable.
So we have talked about this. And, like, it does actually make my heart so happy that I can say, we talked about this in our friend group because we have talked about it so many times. And I do think it was just so good for all of us. But several of us all expressed that we all felt crappy postpartum. Like, we all didn't love our bodies and how things were, like, looking and feeling. Like, I didn't like how, like, when I was getting out of bed, I felt like things I'd never felt before. And it was more difficult. And I didn't love the way my body felt.
The new roles are
But so many of our spouses all told us that they were, like, very attracted to us after having a baby. Like, there was something about, like, you gave birth to my child and like are feeding it. Like, there was something that so many of them were like, it's working for me. So it's just kind of funny that like we were all like, oh, but our hips and stretch marks. Like, we were all focused on all these like.
I was like, you saw me poo. Or he's like, you gave life to my child.
And they're all just like, and so many of them said that. So it's just an interesting point, food for thought. If you're in this, if you're going through this, you might want to talk about it because it might be totally working for him. And all these negative thoughts you're thinking, he might be thinking the complete opposite.
For sure. Just because your body doesn't, or your body looks different doesn't make it better or worse.
Yes.
They might just be like, I'm here for it.
Yeah.
And not just your breastfeeding boobs. All of it. Yeah. So we talked about immediate postpartum.
Yep.
Jen was randy. I took some time, but then, you know, we got things going. So I guess you didn't actually have to do anything to like ease into it, really. No,
jumped back on the back
you're
wagon.
like, there was no easing. Did you wait until 6 weeks or did you?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Sorry.
I mean, you don't have to.
We did wait until the 6 weeks. Like, I just wanted to make
that
sure
arbitrary number
fine.
that means
after
nothing.
having a C-section and like the incision, like
yeah.
I felt more like I had to wait. Like, I don't actually know all the science or whatever, but like when you have this big incision and like it's hard to even move out of bed, you're not gonna have sex.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, we did wait the 6 weeks. We didn't do it before that, but I had so many just like medical problems in my life. Like, my body worked the best for sex that it's worked in years.
Your whole life.
Like, my whole life,
since
basically.
you were.
So for me, I was like, this is amazing. So I don't want anyone out there to be like, oh, she's so lucky. Like, you know, like.
But we need to hear the good stories too. The same way that
Yes.
some people have really beautiful, powerful births.
Yeah.
Some people have really awful, traumatic ones. So just having a baby does not always mean that your sex life is going to get worse or that it's going to be painful or you're not going to enjoy it. Like, it could actually, you could get your vagina could be feng shui.
So, right, like that could happen. You could have an increased sex drive. You could be really into it after. Like, you don't know how you're going to react.
Your bond with your partner might even be stronger. I feel like for Jeff and I, we're so much more connected. Even though we fight and hate each other so much more now over petty things, overall, we're so much more connected as a couple. We are like, our love is like so much deeper, not to be all sappy. Our relationship is just like, we're so much more connected. And that has actually translated into better sex. I wouldn't say more frequent sex just because life, but definitely better.
But I think that's more important.
Yeah, for sure.
I think a better relationship and better sex is better than having sex all the time, but not in a great space.
Yeah, not enjoying it,
not enjoying it,
them.
not liking. Yeah, like if you're just having angry sex because you don't like
hate
your husband
sex.
all the time, and you're just like doing it because it's a chore. Like, that's not.
I agree. You need to want to have sex with your partner.
Yes.
And if you don't.
Okay, so what are things you did then?
Yes.
Since I'm saying I didn't really need to do much.
Well, first we talked about it. I talked to him how I was like mad and like upset. Not mad. I was upset that he wasn't initiating it. And then we kind of talked about, okay, like, are we ready? What do we want to do? What do we want to try?
What do we want to do?
Yeah. Oh, well, like, do we start with, do you start with a little hands-on action or do you go right for the penetration? So we talked about it. I don't even know what the conversation was, but we did. And then
protection. Oh, we should also talk
we talked about protection. Yes.
This is a good point. This is a good point to make as I rub my belly.
We actually did. It was very non-sexy, but we talked about what we wanted to do for protection before we actually had sex the first time.
Which is the way you should do it. And your doctor's appointment, they should bring it up. Yeah.
I had an IUD before we tried getting pregnant. We didn't really need to use condoms because I had my IUD. So we talked about how, like, okay, we actually do need to start, we need something. And I was like, I don't want to get another IUD right now. So we're going to have to use condoms. So that came up. And then I was like, okay, well, if we're using condoms, then we need like lots of lube, because we used to use coconut oil for lube, but it's not actually safe with condoms because it's oil-based, not water-based. If your plan is condoms, get them before you're ready, because then you don't have like an impromptu
someone rush into the store when you just want to get it on.
What's the word? Not spontaneous. Word retrieval. What are some other things we did? Oh, on my list here, masturbation. I went to a talk with Roxana. I will link her below. She is
at Belly's.
At Belly's,
I didn't go to this one. Yes, talk about what she told
where we
you.
talked about intimacy postpartum. And one of the things she said is the only person you should be having sex with immediately postpartum is yourself. And I was like, I love that, because that is something that I would like before I got pregnant, or even actually maybe a little bit when I was pregnant, something that I've always really enjoyed. I've always really enjoyed masturbating. I've always liked using toys. This is something Jeff and I talk about all the time. Sometimes we do it next to each other like that. We like doing that. If we don't feel like having sex, but we both want to have a little orgasm, we'll masturbate next to each other. And we've always liked that. It was a good way to like bring toys into the bedroom in like a non-intimidating way. Mm-hmm. But postpartum, for some reason, it felt like icky and wrong to want to masturbate, even though it was something I did a lot. Well, not a lot, but like something that, even if it was a lot, something that I did before. And so that is something that I actually talked to Jeff about, because I felt like weird about it. I think it was maybe because like the only chance I would have to do it is when like Henry was napping, and at first he was in the room. So there was like that logistical barrier to it. Yeah, it's definitely not something I've done as much postpartum, but it was something that helped in the like initial, like we're trying to get back into it phase. And then sex toys is something that we helped. I find that, like, for me, penetrative sex makes it really hard to orgasm. Like, I need a little bit of something on the outside, which I feel like most women are like.
Whether they're not, they want to admit it.
Yes. Yeah. Like, it's like only Samantha Jones can, well, not only, but it's, she is the gold standard, and you know what, we all have to get the second best. Good enough.
Yep, good enough.
You listened to last episode. So adding some toys into the bedroom can be a really good way to, one, make it easier to orgasm, just change things up, or even like make it more gentle for postpartum, because maybe you do that. You start with just like touching yourselves or each other, like just externally, like next to each other, because especially if you had a vaginal delivery, there's a lot more trauma that goes on in and around where the penetration happens, you know?
I think for me, my pelvic floor loosened so
and
much
you needed
in pregnancy
that.
because of like all the relaxin and stuff that's all the hormones. I think for me, my body was finally like, oh, and like my pelvic floor finally relaxed
Reset,
as I was getting ready to have a baby, and then it helped my issues.
Definitely.
So I think that's why it was like my body just mentally was like, oh, this is better. This feels better. This feels more normal. I'm not like spasming and
it almost like relaxed you to a good point.
But just everyone is so different. And you brought up a good point about like Henry being in the room and in the bassinet. And so a lot of couples will be like, okay, we're ready to do it. When do we do it? Where do we do it? Do we do it in the room? Like, then are the baby going to watch us? It's kind of like pets. Like if you have a cat or something on the bed and you're like, are you just going to watch us have sex? Or like, are you going to come in the room, or you close the door? Like, so it's like that, but like times 1,000 when you have a child that maybe in a bassinet in your room.
The first time we had sex, he was in the bassinet, but we have a king size bed, so we're like, let's just go over to the far side. But
a lot of people won't do it because that'll be like a barrier for
a barrier.
It'll be a barrier
Definitely
for
though,
them.
because like the first time you have sex postpartum, it can be very painful. I don't want to say it's normal, like it's common, and like you might not be able to like actually finish the deed. Like he might just like put it in, and then you're like, hey, no, this is too much, and you have to go so slow, and you need like actual so much communication. It's not very sexy the first, not for everybody, but in my experience, it wasn't very sexy those first few minutes, and that's fine. That was okay.
But it's almost working as like a dilator. Like you just need to kind of go in there, even if there's no movement, and it's just there to like let your body like
He went in, we're just going there. Mom, I really hope you're not listening. But actually, like, way more lube than normal. And it was, like, literally, like, just the tip. And it was like, okay, now we're good. So, like, we can go a little bit farther.
But you should
and it was
celebrate
like, okay,
those wins.
a little
like,
bit
that's
more.
Yeah. Great. Like,
He got the tip in.
Like, any amount is
we
good.
ended up actually, like, that same time, like, having, like, actual.
It just needed to go slow.
It was, like, minutes of, like, okay, a little bit more. And then, like, there was parts where it was like, ooh, like, that, it felt like rug burn. But I was like, no, well, let's just keep going. And not like, oh, keep going, I'm fine. Like, it was like, no, okay, like, just slow. But, like, and then I think everything kind of loosened up. And then it was.
And you don't have to do it all at once. It could literally be like
a finger.
Yeah, just touching a finger, like the tip. Then next time you do it, like
just the tip. That's the only time you want just the tip.
Yeah, but like it just I guess the whole thing is do it at your own schedule, at your own pace. Don't feel like you have to sit there and suffer through pain and being so uncomfortable because you need to make your spouse happy. Yeah, like that's not.
They can make themselves happy.
They can make themselves happy. Yeah, like they can make themselves happy. Like don't put yourself through that. Like that would be the one thing I like.
100%. And I think also this is a good time to normalize the masturbation conversation with your partner. If they have a different level of sex drive, maybe they feel like they're not allowed to masturbate. Maybe they feel like we're doing it. Maybe that's something that you need to talk about. Be like, okay, well, maybe once or twice a week, maybe I give you some time in the shower, or you watch some porn. Like, that's okay, because that's what guys would do if they're single, or even girls. That is often what they would do. But for some reason, when you're married or in a relationship, that all of a sudden that's like weird and you're not allowed to do it. But like, why not? Maybe that is something, not that they need permission to do that, but maybe they feel like they're not. Does that make sense? Like they're not, they shouldn't be doing it, that you'll be mad, but maybe this is a good time to be like, hey, our sexual needs are not the same right now. And we need to find ways to like meet in the middle for ourselves and still be intimate together, but also that all of our needs being met. And that, does that,
Yeah, no, fully. I totally get it.
So Jeff, if you're listening, I can give you some time in the shower to jerk off.
So if you haven't noticed, one of the big things that we keep coming back to in this episode is
masturbation. No, okay. Communication.
Okay, that's a close second. Yeah. But communication, because
100%.
You actually just need to talk about these things. And like we can't urge that enough. If you could take one thing away from, a couple things. Like it is normal to talk about sex. You should be talking about it
dirty.
with your friends and your actual partner, because it is important to talk about these things, to normalize it. It's not dirty. It is okay. It is good. It is so good to have in your relationship and to be comfortable with, but talk to your partner about it.
Definitely.
Like, I just can't.
And you can start small. Maybe you guys listen to a podcast about sex together. Maybe you put on a movie that you has a scene that like you want to do, and then you normalize it, and you're like, hey, maybe we try that. Like maybe it will take a little bit of work to build the courage to actually have this conversation. We recognize it can be hard. You're not just going to sit down and be like, okay, honey, let's try butt plugs. If you've never had a conversation about sex, that would be like a lot. And a lot of partners can become very not insulted, but like sensitive about you wanting to bring toys in. It is nothing against them. It is nothing about their abilities. It's just no human can vibrate. That is not a thing that humans can do. So it is just, it's different. It's the same way if somebody wanted to add in like handcuffs or what are those things when you dress up? Costumes? No. Outfits?
Nope. There's a play.
Role play.
Yes.
Or people who are into like more like BDSM things like whips and stuff. Like that's just like an extra thing you add in. And I feel like we need to look at toys the same way. Like I feel like there's men out there who would like to play with, eating fruit and whipped cream off somebody, but they would like poo on the idea of using a vibrator in bed. But eating whipped cream off your partner doesn't mean that you're not a good lover. Like if they want to add that in, do you know what I'm saying here?
Yeah.
Like it's not anything against your abilities. If anything, it's the opposite of that. That like it's a good compliment. I don't know. Some guys get
just going on tangents.
Yeah, tangents. Some guys get all butthurt about wanting to add toys in. Like they get like insulted that it's I don't know. Guys are sensitive.
Makes them less manly.
Yes, exactly. That like they're not. I can't please my wife without these additions. Like
I think that's a very old school way
very
of
old.
thinking.
Yeah, but there's some old school people out there.
But if this is something that you want to talk to your spouse about, but you don't really know how, you can talk to a therapist about it.
Yes, that's good.
Like,
Roxana. I'll have to find out her name. She's great.
Yes, through Bellies, because she actually works out of the Bellies office too, and she does some counseling through there. So that's a good option. But even your other therapists, like you can talk about ways to facilitate these conversations with your spouse and your partner. Like that could be something that maybe that's your first baby step, is talking about it with your therapist or a counselor about how you can start having these conversations.
Good idea.
Maybe if you start talking about it with your friends, I know that sounds backwards, but you might need to do that just to get more comfortable saying the words out loud and talking about it before you might be able to approach it with your husband or your partner. So
definitely
there can be like baby steps that you can do to kind of build up to this. But if you do this before you start trying to conceive or before you get to postpartum, it's just going to help in that transition.
So much easier.
Because now you don't have the same time. You have a child in the room that might be screaming or trying to sleep, or, like it logistically, time and place is very difficult after having a baby. You're touched out. Things might not feel the same. Like there's a lot of barriers that happen after having a child for like years to come. We're not just talking immediate postpartum. Like having a child for years will always
make it harder.
Make some challenges to find the time and the place and so if you can kind of set up that communication and start talking about those things the earliest possible, it's just setting you up for more success in that, like trying to conceive in postpartum
and
journey.
If you're uncomfortable talking about sex with your partner and you haven't had a baby yet, this is such a good time to like work on that skill together, because having a baby together, like you have to have so many deep, raw and like vulnerable conversations and just even moments together. So it is a really good way to kind of, it's very intimate to kind of prepare for that. And if you are uncomfortable with talking about sex, like that's okay. Like it's okay that it doesn't just like come naturally to you. Something that you could definitely do is go somewhere like a sex store, because the people that work in these stores are so open and sex positive that they talk about sex and intimacy and sex toys and everything about sex as if it's like, I don't know, like shopping for a vegetable. Like you go in and they're like, well, what kind of pleasure do you like? Do you like penetration? Do you like clitoral pleasure? Do you like anal play? Like they just ask all these questions and you're like, holy cow, like this is like just a normal conversation, as if I came in here and said, what do you prefer, the vanilla or pumpkin spice latte? Like they're
maybe
so
it's something
open.
You and your spouse can do together
For sure.
Yep.
But kind of being around people like that who are very open and it's like non-judgmental, and it's okay. You can say, I'm nervous. I've never been here before. Like they will not judge it. You will never feel as like
Judged.
comfortable
Yeah,
or like
yeah,
less
yeah.
judged that you will
Yeah.
when you, So yeah, if any of you locals want to go to a sex store together, I'll be your gal. I'll come with you. It's like a sex store wing woman. Like I'll be your your
I'll
buffer.
help you out. I'll just crack some jokes.
Exactly, definitely.
I'll make you feel good.
I'll make you feel good. I mean, I'm
You know
definitely
what I
no
mean?
expert, but I can definitely lighten the mood.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. It's one of those topics that we're like, this is so important. We need to bring up and talk about. But that some people are still very sensitive
For
and
sure.
like, oh, they're going to talk about that. Or like, it's just still not totally normal.
It's
in
not
our
totally normal in our culture.
which
No.
is unfortunate because it's also a huge part of our culture.
I also blame the patriarchy because the patriarchy is to blame for everything. That like women deserve to like actually enjoy sex and pleasure, and like that is not something that has ever been prioritized in.
And like
the
when
world.
you're pregnant, people are going to know you're having sex. So it's not like it's a secret. So like just
and if you've already had a
put
baby,
that out there, like people are going to know. Like
that's true.
So if you're like embarrassed about that, like how do you ever tell people you're pregnant? You're just announcing we had unprotected sex.
Have you ever seen that meme where I'm gonna find it? My friend sent it to me when I was trying to get pregnant, and it was like, oh, like when somebody tells you that they're trying to get pregnant, and like all you can think about is like that's code for I'm letting my partner come in me all the time, like
all the time.
Like
Yeah, I've totally seen it because it is funny, right?
It is funny because
So
that's true.
if you're so like shy about sex, like what do you tell anyone you're trying or you're pregnant? Like
Yeah.
you're talking about
You're
it.
trying is just code names for we're having lots of unprotected sex.
Yeah, like it's all the time.
Yeah.
Like it's just yeah.
I get freaky in the morning before day shit. No, I don't, but yeah.
Hopefully this conversation just helped kind of normalize some of this conversations, and maybe it gave you some encouragement to talk to your partner about it.
Yeah.
And your friends, your
Talk
mom
to us.
friends, talk
Yeah.
about it. Talk about if you've done it or not postpartum, and like what you found. Did it feel better or worse? Like what things helped you? Like it's only going to help. And like we are here to help each other and to bring each other up and to not judge each other and to just be there, and it'll help.
What's that song? I'll be there. Oh, that's the Friends thing. Oh God, I'm
Friends
so embarrassed
theme
that I
song.
almost didn't remember that. The Rembrandt.
Yeah, that is sad.
Clearly. Okay, well let's wrap it up.
Yep. Okay. Mom Day mantra.
Oh yes.
Oh, okay.
I forgot. Mom Day mantra for today.
Yeah.
You want me to go for a twofer?
Yeah,
Two
go
in
for
a row.
twofer, yeah.
Intimacy ebbs and flows. Open communication nurtures your connection throughout the seasons. I think that sums up today's episode perfectly.
Yep.
Intimacy, and whether like not even just intimacy, whether or not you want to be around your partner, ebbs and flows.
Totally.
100% with pregnancy, postpartum, trying to conceive, but open communication is the thing that's gonna it's the glue that's gonna hold it all together.
Keeps your relationship going. That bond, that like we're in
That
this
keeps you
together. It
together.
really helps.
And your communication also fosters your intimacy. Like
Yes.
it's a feedback loop.
Yes. All right. Thanks for listening.
Bye bye.
We'll see you next week. Happy Mom Day.